All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America. I am Don Irvine and joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Good morning. Hello, deplorables, drags, despicables, chumps, Neanderthals, and of course, those dog-faced pony soldiers.
That's right. And Brian is fresh off his latest haircut.
Yeah, so, absolutely. 5 on the top, 2 on the sides.
I was thinking this morning, like, okay, I got my last haircut before the wedding. That was almost a month ago. It's almost time for me to catch up to you here a little bit. But my hair will never be as short as your hair.
No. A lot of people tell me that, like, I'm not doing that. I'm like, okay.
It's good for the summer. I don't like my hair getting too long. I mean, actually, I have a friend of mine at church who was saying, his hair is much longer than it's really ever been, probably since his younger days. And he hates it, but he has to do it because he has a 10-inch scar on his head after he had surgery because he had something on. I guess he had like a cancerous tumor on his optic nerve or whatever.
Oh wow!
And so they had to operate, and so they cut him open. So it's the only way to really it's either short hair and display your scar or long hair and keep, so people don't start asking you a lot of questions and everything else that goes on. So I see him or see pictures of him, it's like, this isn't the Chris I knew, kind of just trying to get used to that. I mean, I'm glad to an extent that he doesn't like it, but he knows the necessity. So
well, I'll tell you what, shampoo is like a 15-second process. It's all, comb. I don't have a comb in my hand for weeks now, So
think of all the money we would save if our wives would go to shorter hair, right?
I'm not telling my wife how to do her
hair. Yeah, exactly.
Zero input on that
one. Yeah. No way. Yeah, no, it's like, hey, who's going to take that first step?
Stay in your lane.
Especially don't do it if they're in the kitchen or something like that in their hand. All right, so on to the more serious things that are going on here. So today's what, September 8th, Saturday, the 20th anniversary of the attacks, the 9/11 attacks. We talked about this briefly in the past leading up to this because of things that have happened in Afghanistan and whatnot. But we're going to have a very somber day. I expect that President Biden administration will be doing all they can on that day to honor that day and memorialize those that lost their lives. So those, the first, anywhere from the people that were in the towers, on the plane, in the Pentagon, the first responders, all the people that are involved in this. But it's not going to be the 9/11 that he expected, in the sense of, because of the Afghanistan, what happened, this policy kind of puts us in a very, I don't know, it's just going to be an unusual, it's kind of a tough spot for him, but he's situation, his own grave in a situation.
Well, the one political entity we tried to hold responsible for 9/11, the Taliban, is going to be stronger, in better position than they were 20 years ago. I mean, their lot has been improved, and they've all already made, alliances with, the rogues gallery of countries in the world, China, Russia, Iran, the worst human rights violators on earth, have, instantly become their loyal allies. Our country is weakened. We seem vulnerable on the world stage right now in a way we haven't in decades. It's a tragic, big geopolitical mistake, that's going to overshadow this. President's supposed to go to all three memorials, New York, the Pentagon, and Shanksville, Pennsylvania, on Saturday for commemoration ceremonies and so forth. And that's good, but it's, what's going to overshadow this is the just massive failure of his administration to handle the situation properly. I mean, it didn't.
Yeah, I mean, right, exactly. I mean, and I if he was looking to use this as a, initially as something political that he could say, look what we have done here. We've ended this 20-year war. From the U.S. perspective, this is something that we started. On because of 9/11, we've done this, but we didn't emerge victorious. We don't have anything to hang our hat on. All the progress that we made in Afghanistan, even if the trillions of dollars we spent there, there was a lot of progress that was made there for human rights, just for economic progress, all the things that were going on there. We were holding back the Taliban and everything like that. And what do you say? I mean, what comforting words can you give to the survivors, at this point in time? This is a day that is, that weighs heavily on lots and lots of families in America. And then you have the president of the United States who pulled this maneuver here and basically, just wiped away all the progress, all the victories. Why were we there if we were going to do this? I mean, what does it do to the memories of those that were lost?
Right. That's like, how does he look the military in the eye and say, 20 years, I mean, they really suffered for this. Almost everyone was deployed. Everybody who was in the military in the last 20 years was deployed over there at some point for some period of time, either Afghanistan or Iraq or somewhere in that part of the world, right? They're away from their families for a year or two or more, at a time. And now, all that progress was erased, right? You had, the scene of the woman that really got to me was the woman newscaster, right? They go in the studio and literally walked her off the stage because, women being able to work in professions like that is done, right? We had accomplished that. We had made that happen in Afghanistan. And, we everybody wants to jump on this. Shouldn't be in nation building. We built a half decent nation there, considering what was there before. And, and we walked away. This woman was escorted off the stage. All the women who are teaching in the universities there have been told, do not attempt to teach anything to anyone anymore. You're back, at home. You don't leave unless you're with a relative. It's back to the old days. And by old days, I mean, the 6th or 7th century. It was immediately, the sanctions were snapped on immediately. So, when they tell you they care about women, they don't care about women. They let this go. They didn't look out for the women of Afghanistan at all.
No, absolutely. And as you read stories, I mean, there's a story about the Afghans, they're the national women's soccer team, trying to get them out. I was reading another story about, a young family trying to leave. Now, the mother was already in California, but her two daughters, 14 and 3, and also, I guess her mother were still in Afghanistan, and they were trying to get out, and trying to get trying to get out of there. And they made an attempt. They were on a bus. The bus got stopped, or I guess they were walking the street. They were trying to go, and the Taliban, they stopped them. They weren't fully covered, anything like this. They said, I guess the girl, the 14-year-old, she was in her school uniform. So they were all sent back to the home, and they were told, it says, don't even think about coming out, otherwise we'll shoot you the next time. So they basically huddled in the basement and things like that. They were afraid to go anywhere. They did make another attempt, which they did basically they were covered up. They took a bus. They tried to get to Kabul. The bus stopped, but the Taliban, the guy who got on there, looked at everybody and then let the bus proceed. But just getting, then making it through the rest of the checkpoints, getting to the airport and getting out, they managed to get away to fly to Ukraine, to Kiev. And then the mother flew to Kiev to go see them, to go reunite them. But there's all these kinds of things here where the women, the government in Kabul now is all male. Taliban, this is the way it goes. Women are now going to be back to that extremely subservient role that they had before. They just stripped away in 20 years. I mean, basically, as you said, I mean, we're going back centuries. It's in one fell swoop. We just took a huge step backwards in our country.
Joe Biden could have a photo op. I mean, there's no geopolitical pressure on him to do this at all, other than he wanted a photo op, right? He just didn't He didn't care about those people or what would happen or downstream effects of this at all, right? Because he wanted to be able to say, hey, we're out of there. 20 years, we're not there anymore, right? And when people ask about it, I mean, that's his thing is, hey, it was time to end the war. Well, you could talk to us about ending the war, but, you needed to also, talk to us about a orderly way to do it. Maybe one that preserves some of those prerogatives for women.
Right. And you can see Bob has chimed in here about this, is that, talking about Islamic extreme terrorist threats have increased rather than decreased since 9/11, and I mean, we are seeing things like this. I mean, in terms of, whether or not, it's ISIS, the Taliban, all these things, they are now saying, okay, well, look, the U.S. is gone. They've pulled out all their military troops. We can go back and do what we were doing before. We held back. We had some territories, but now we can go ahead and run roughshod and do our thing because the U.S. isn't going to push back at all. And as far as I can tell, we didn't necessarily get every U.S. citizen out, or did we? And plus we have a lot of these other people that had aided us that are still there. And, we don't know how they're going to fare, but it doesn't look good if we can't find a way to get them out. But it doesn't seem like the administration is.
We're also now sorting through who we did get out. And we didn't do a very good job of vetting, right? Because you have people coming out that are on terrorist watch lists. You have people coming out claiming they have child brides, guys at my age with, it's my 4-year-old wife. That's not, we did nothing to stop that, We just let it happen because, hey, this guy needed his photo op because his polls were tanking. I mean, this is, and I think that, you're never going to hear this because they're pretty good at closing ranks on the other side. But, the people who are advising him on this were resolutely against this approach, right? They were telling him, you're doing the wrong thing. We don't have the bandwidth to do this. And he refused to listen. So that's a part of what's happened here.
Yeah, and you think about all the things that are going on here with all this, and just that, the world has changed. I mean, 20 years ago, the world changed. The attacks, the 9/11 attacks changed everything. It didn't take all that long before people, a lot of people restored their lives and things kind of returned to some sense of normalcy in that way as time went on. But, it should never have lessened, the need to vet people coming to this country. I mean, I can understand, 30 years ago how things were going. I mean, the humanitarian situations, they let people in. We weren't really worried about what we're worried about today. The terrorist threat really wasn't there like it is today. And, the administration has to understand that, yes, okay, we do need to take some of these people in probably because we created this mess. On the other hand, it does not mean that you give them carte blanche and you just let everybody come in. You have to check them out because it's like everything else. These people are going to do everything they can. It's like, oh, this is we can sneak in now. It's been pretty hard to get us in there before, but now we've got a mass of people on airplanes coming in. Hey, this is we can sneak right in and plot the next attack. None of us want to see that.
If you're not doing this at the point of a gun, then you can vet who gets out, right? If we had 2 months to say, okay, we're leaving in 2 months, and you start pulling, then you can start saying, okay, these 200 people really helped us. That 4,000 people, we don't know them from Adam, right? And we can sort of single that out. But that's not what we just put anybody who said they helped us on a plane and flew them out. Most of them to the United States with minimal or no vetting. I mean, they claim there's vetting, but they're getting here, they're getting on our soil, and we're finding out all kind of interesting stuff once in the country. So, this business, they claim, oh, we're flying them all to Europe and asking them 200 questions. No, you're not. A lot of those flights are coming straight to the United States. And that's the other thing. It's like just the bald-faced lies that keep getting told about this, right? This over and over and over, they're all out. Everybody's safe. No, they're not all out. No, not everybody's safe. There's no hostages. There's 3 plane loads of hostages, right? It's just on and on and on. They either don't know or don't care, right? And, you know, the other thing is like, it doesn't seem, there's been a couple of these things lately where it doesn't seem Biden is sure which one of these guys is the Secretary of State. Have you noticed that? I mean, he doesn't really know the guy's name. And it's like, okay, you don't know his name, but, you know, which one of these four guys standing there is the Secretary of State? You should be able to pick out which dude it is, even if you can't access his name in your memory, right? But he doesn't seem to know. So I think we're a lot closer to the end of the Biden administration than anyone thinks, you know.
Does Joe Biden need like a memory test, you know, to remember this? Just repeat winking, blinking, and nod, and then you'll figure it out or something, you know.
Yeah. He needs something, and he gets stuck. And when he gets stuck, right, when you can tell when the machine fries, right, and then you know, the next stuff out of his mouth is dangerous babble. But you're the president; you can't babble.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you though. I mean, now it's like, what's your feeling about the media's coverage of this overall now? I mean, there have been a few. I know I've seen some tougher moments where they've been trying to grill some of these administration people and Democrats and things like that. But I don't know. I just got the overall impression that, you know, they pushed this issue and tried to be tough rather than actually really being tough.
I get that impression too. That is, you know, hey, we're going to show our objectivity here. Don't say we're not objective. Remember that time we got mad at Biden? You know, you can see them starting to back off of it too. There's a lot more think pieces of this wasn't really all that bad, and you know, hey, look, we're out of Afghanistan. You know, so we did get what we were trying to get. So you know, sort of in a way, mission accomplished. You know. So you can see them starting to like rewrite the script a little bit. But yeah, there's some people out there, you know, and I think that, you know, there's some other stuff where, you know, voters lost a lot of confidence in a hurry. Like one of the things you had on there, we were talking about the Zogby poll, where 20% of people who voted for Biden regret their vote. And that poll, what people don't understand, the big thing about that poll is it was taken before this happened. Right, that was 20% who had taken the measure of the Biden presidency before the Afghanistan debacle and said, I probably didn't get this right, which is an alarmingly high number. You know, and it's a lot of people in their key demographics too, young people. You know, they're like, hey, the mean tweets, they weren't so bad, right? Because at least it was competently run. So yeah, the ground is shifted on Biden, and this made it a lot worse. And I think this crystallized for national media that there was a lot of rampant incompetence here, that there was no way to explain it away. And if your job is to report, and you know incompetence is on your door every day, then you got to say something about it.
I mean, I just don't really know where the Biden administration is headed on this. I mean, it does seem right now that you know, he talk about Afghanistan, and in a sense, he's got an excuse to deflect on this, and that is, you know, the Hurricane Ida aftermath. You know, as you know, went all the way up the coast, right? It went all the way up into New York and, you know, the Northeast. So he can go up there and talk about there and hope that he shifts the narrative to that. Though I think there's still risks with that, because there's still Democrat politicians in those areas that maybe should have done more in preparation for storms like this. You know, they're getting hit like this every so often, and I think the people, you know, are getting a little bit weary of just getting slammed by storm after storm and having to kind of rebuild over and over again. And there are policies that could be put into effect. I mean, Democrats are supposed to be all about these constituents and all these people, but they don't really pay attention to them until, you know, they'll give them some attention now, and then after they spend a little bit of money or throw a little bit of attention on them, then they'll move on to something else. Another storm will come back, and they'll just kind of, you know, repeat the whole cycle all over again. But it does, you know, the media will focus on this for right now. It gives Biden a chance, as I've said, to not talk about Afghanistan. But I think Afghanistan is still hanging out there until we see what's going on out there. I mean, the Taliban is pushing. They want access to the money that's that's in accounts around the world. The U.S. is not right now. They're holding. They're freezing a lot of accounts, but I don't trust the Biden administration to keep that into effect forever. That at some point in time, they're going to play nice with the Taliban, and they're going to start releasing that money, and that I think will be just an even bigger disaster, is to give them that fuel.
Yeah, they're talking about working with them on intelligence and stuff, right? So sure, they seem trustworthy to me, right?
Trust the Taliban, yeah, sure.
You realize that 2 of the top 3 or 4 people in the leadership there were people that were released in exchange for Bo Bergdahl. So they knew who they were getting. I knew, when that thing happened, they were real specific about who they wanted back, right? They asked for some certain strategically important people and got them back. And those people are now at the head of the government, And we don't leave before this administration, we didn't leave any Americans behind. So, I don't know how much you can blame Obama, and he doesn't know these guys one from another. But, it did end up that those people, they were key people. They were asking for important people, and they got them, But the indifference of this, just hey, everyone wants out of Afghanistan, right? You're just trying to bull rush past the issue. And, I think even the mainstream journalists realized that they were being rolled here. And, they don't mind, touting the leftist line, but they don't want to feel like they're part of the people getting conned. So I think that's part of what happened, is that, you had some hurt feelings. And I think it'll be corrected here. They'll be back on his team.
Well, and that's interesting, though, what you just said about the whole Bergdahl exchange and everything like that, too, because I don't know. I mean, this is obviously Monday morning quarterbacking type of thing like this, and I'm not an intelligence analyst or anything like that. I would never, be an intelligence expert or things like that. But it just seems to beg the question that when these guys ask for very specific people, that exactly what are people doing to say, why do they want that person? If they want that person, should we not make sure we do our due diligence and check this person out to see, what are the potential ramifications? Should we give up this person? Right. I mean, you can have a prisoner exchange. I'll give you these 3 guys for this guy or whatever. But when you're asking for specific people that you've captured like that, then it does kind of make you wonder. Doesn't it send up a little red flag saying, maybe we just ought to double check on this before we agree to this.
Right. So keep an eye on that guy,
Yeah. I mean, I think we part of that could be part of our own failure there on the administration's part there of, when that occurred as well. So, there's a lot of moving parts in here, but Biden administration owns this as much as he tries to pin this on Trump and everything like this. As I've stated before, I mean, 18 months. No military fatalities. Biden makes this decision. We lose 13 service members, in this attack on the airport. Just absolute chaos, absolute tragedy. I mean, it is a complete mess as to what he did there. And, the incompetence level is just off the charts. And, once again, as we have talked, for someone, who
created a dangerous force in the country, on the world scene. You have a rogue country run by 7th century religious zealots and aligned with the worst human rights violators on earth. So what's left behind there is pretty darn important to this too.
Right, and what is a signal that you're sending to the rest of the world at that stage as well, right? So to me, as no matter how much Biden, they try to spin this and run away from this. The truth is out there. I mean, I think people understand. And, when, as you alluded to the Zogby poll, I mean, taking place before all of this, it'll be very interesting to see. I mean, if he does a follow-up poll along those lines as to what would happen there. But it's stunning that this early, now I guess when the poll was taken, we were not necessarily quite, we weren't even 7 months into the administration necessarily.
Right.
To have people with that high level of remorse. And I mean, as you pointed out, it was students. I mean, it was still a decent number of Democrats. It wasn't like it was 5% of Democrats, 35% Republicans.
Yeah.
So that's stunning when the Democrats start to say, yeah, I pulled that trigger for this guy, but it didn't work out the way that we thought it was. I mean, the Democrats did. Well, look, I mean, I think we both know there's really nothing that Biden did to win the presidency, but remain in his basement for the most part, not say a lot, and just let Trump speak. And just a hatred for Trump that was built up by the media and others was a large factor in what happened here. So I never really understood what Biden stood for. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really, it was never really clear to me exactly what was Joe Biden going to do as president. He really didn't have to spell this out too much, because the other factors were bigger factors than anything he does. We talked about this actually during the campaign, I think, on the show. It's just that Biden didn't really, he really wasn't basically spelling out the campaign, the platform of what they were going to do, because he really didn't have to.
It was not his, it should have said on his line on the ballot, not Trump.
Right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So, the other thing is, I guarantee you, there was not a day of the Trump presidency that 20% of the people who voted for Trump regretted it. Right. They didn't regret it. Yeah. They were happy with Trump. And, the forces arrayed against him got big, and we don't know if that was, I mean, I'm still not convinced that he actually lost the election, but the people who were on his side stayed on his side. And you see the recent poll of who should be Republicans' nominee in 2024, and he's 60 points ahead of DeSantis. Right, it's like 80-20, or 8 or. 7 to 17 or something,
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, I think you're right on that in terms of this. It's just that the people who voted for Trump, very few probably regret voting for Trump. I mean, that they are diehard. I mean, this is one of the most interesting things about how politics.
He did what he said he was going to do. He delivered on his promises. Republicans have been waiting for a long time for someone to. Not just talk about closing the border, but close the border, right? Not just talk about rebuilding the military, but rebuilding the military. Not just talk about protecting us from, threats from countries we can't verify whether the people are terrorists, but actually taking steps to do that. Not just talk about cutting taxes in a way that actually generates growth, but actually doing it. So, I think there was a real feeling that, like him or not, or, appreciate his personal peccadillos or not, Trump did what he said he was going to do, and what he said he was going to do were long-held conservative goals.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't really know that we've had anyone. Maybe there was maybe Reagan was really the last Republican president that had this kind of. The loyalty with the Trump people is really fierce, considering all the ups and downs of the Trump administration and just all the things that went on, pro and con. Even to this day, the Trump people are extremely loyal. I mean, I see this in Republican circles with people on our Republican Central Committee here in Montgomery County. The Trump group is strong. They do not waver at all. I mean, nothing will deter them at all. And that is a base that it's unbelievable that he has held that base. A lot of times, if you lose an election, people start to scatter and they look for the next guy. Right now, Trump is not losing, really. He's got extreme loyalty from just an amazing amount of people out there with all of this. And so it's fascinating, I think, from a political standpoint to see what's going on here. Bob just sent in this comment. Members of the Taliban 5-star playing significant roles again after released a cutter in 2014. And I think that goes to what you were just saying, right, Brian, in terms of, we're not surprised as to exactly what's happened here. Their Taliban was able to basically, what they wanted to do. And it's almost like they didn't, they had a 20-year lull where they weren't in power, but they haven't really, they're not skipping a beat. They're basically picking up where they left. And, it doesn't look like America had any real effect in the end because they're just wiping that slate clean. And as you mentioned a little bit earlier too, about the women, this is still a problem for the Democrats, and the Biden administration, is just that the treatment of women in Afghanistan. I mean, these are the people, the Democrats are the people that are supposed to be standing up for feminists, all the people, and yet, we're not hearing a lot from the Democrats, from the feminists about this. I mean, if you had if you had these feminist organizations stand up and complain about this, this is not going to help Biden. So they're trying to toe the line
on girls' sports. Right? How could you let that happen?
Right.
That was like the more recent one. Is the one you jumped off for the new, the cute new suitor in town and left your old girlfriend behind, literally.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see where this goes. I don't know what the you could be right. The Biden administration is definitely wobbling a lot. We're going to hear some speeches. We're going to hear some speeches on 9/11. I think, is there another speech by Biden tomorrow or something like that? Is that what I hear? Is he giving another public speech of some sort?
Yeah, I'm sure it's helping him at this point. And another thing is, if I'm advising them, and they want nothing to do with my advice, I'm sure, but I would not do another appearance where he turns and stalks out of the room without taking a question. Right? People are seeing that, like, he's going to spew his line and he's not going to defend it. Right? He doesn't take any questions. He just turns and walks away. So, Trump held a press conference every day. Remember, he had the everyday press conference when the COVID first started. He had the corporate CEOs, we're changing jockey underwear into making PPV, and you'd have the jockey person up there. Yes, our company's pitching in. Biden never would have done that, and he never would have even considered that as a solution. He would have said, big government orders the production of this, and there would have been no getting, those companies involved in solving the problem. What a patriotic thing, if you work in that plant or for that company, that you're like, hey, we're foregoing some profits here to help the country, right? To pitch in to the big effort. We're never, the libs are just, they'll tell you where the effort's coming from. You don't get to volunteer. You don't get to, put your stamp on anything, right? Because it's all good is going to flow from them. Thank goodness that he wasn't, and he said that the other day. Thank God the other guy wasn't still in charge. The other guy would not have had these problems in Afghanistan. Other guy's economy would not be tanking as the one is now. The other guy would have stood up to this, right? You don't really want to be invoking the other guy when you just screwed up massively.
Yeah, Biden. I don't know what he's going to say. We've got battles all over the place between states and localities on mask mandates in schools and other places going on. We have the Delta variant out there that is pushing up the top line numbers and scaring, putting corporations, into their panicky mode again, where they're saying, well, we were going to return to the office in September, October. Now we're not going to return until January. We're seeing softening the economy in terms of retail sales. I think, unemployment was it was a very soft report last week. Things are trailing off. Business did not reach the level of that airlines thought they were going to reach.
Only a third of the job creation that was expected last month. 1/3 of it. So it's a pretty dramatic falling short of expectations.
Yeah. So right. So, Biden has got to figure, they have to figure their way how to do this, because what he doesn't want to do is over any kind of shutdown, because we've already seen what a shutdown does to the economy, and he doesn't want to do this, particularly once again when you're now coming up on, we're in September, so we're 14 months away roughly from an election that's going to be very important. Where the House will probably flip, the Senate may flip. The Republicans may regain control, and leaving the Biden presidency even more wounded than it already is. So they've got a very tricky task, but they don't really have a lot of weapons at their disposal to try to solve this in the way that Democrats left, would generally solve these problems. So I just don't know that Biden speaking is really going to soothe Americans.
So I did some research last week. Biden was at 42% on Rasmussen for 2 days last week. I think he's back up to about 43 or 44 now. Trump was at 42 on Rasmussen for 3 days of his presidency. He spent another 3 days below 42, 41 for 2 days and 40 for once. One of the 42s and all the 41s and 40s were during the government shutdown, the one shutdown Trump had, right? He shut down over the border money, right? They wouldn't give him the border money, and then he found a way around it and reopened the government. Biden is, things could change, but right now it's almost certain that he's going to face a government shutdown in October because they don't have the votes to lift the debt limit, and they cannot get the votes unless they compromise on the two bills, the federal spending bill and the so-called infrastructure bill. So that, the House wants them passed in a certain order. The Senate, they don't have the votes to pass. One of the one that the House wants to go first, the Senate doesn't have the votes to pass. So right now their whole thing is frozen, and it's on a, collision with the Death Star of the debt penalty of the debt limit running out in October. So he's looking straight at it, and things could change, but right now he's on a glide path for government shutdown in October, and the things against him don't seem all that movable. So I don't know how that ends, right? Because they've got to, it could be that could go on for a long time, and I also don't know. They'll try to make it the Senate. Republicans, the fault of Republicans in the Senate, but it's really not going to be them, right? It's going to be that's going to be their two senators holding it up, Sinema and Manchin. So that could go on for a long time, and that could be really crippling for him, popularity wise, right? Especially given, like you say, the mask thing is coming to a boil, right? People are like, it doesn't really stop COVID. The vaccines don't really stop COVID, right? So all the things you're making us do don't stop it. And when we come up with ways to treat it, just to cure people who get it, that you want to stand in the way of. It's like the only path out that you will let us choose is vaxes, right? Vaxes and masks. And we're like, we don't want those. They haven't been proven to work. And, we want to move on to other things that allow us to live our lives. And I think, I guess you saw there was a school district somewhere. They had instituted mask mandates, and it was done by the health department. So the kids showed up at the school, and they're like, with their parents, of course, we're like, the health department does not run our schools. So you don't have the power to stop us. And they just walked in. They walked right past the school officials and went to school without masks. So you're getting to a point where people are saying, I'm defying this order. You're going to arrest every student in a school. Let's go, right? But we're not just doing it on your say-so anymore. The ground is shifting quickly on Democrats on this.
Yeah, and the thing is, Pelosi has a slim majority, but she still has a majority. So, more or less, she can still pass things through the House. That's usually, this is the problem for her, is that she's placed her priorities in terms of how she wants these bills passed. But as you said, with Sinema and Manchin throwing up their objections to these spending bills, it's going to undergo rough treatment there in the Senate. And time is running out. The debt limit issue, Democrats are in control, right? This is their baby. If they can't solve this, we're September, the clock is running and it's running fast. I don't know. Democrats, you think they're beginning to panic a little bit about trying to make this thing happen?
Yeah, you're starting to see the stories about, this is looking kind of troublesome, folks. Manchin wants to cut the spending blueprint in half, right? They want 3.1 trillion. He's saying he won't vote for anything over 1.5 trillion. That's a lot of cutting. That's more cutting than almost ever takes place in Washington, right? So, but I mean, that's what he said his limit is. And I don't think Sinema has even said what it would take to get her to vote for it. So, and that one, they want to pass first because it has the most green stuff in it, and then the House can vote for that. But absent it coming to them in the correct order, Nancy Pelosi doesn't have the votes in the House for final passage. She's got people mad at her. It is not like it used to be. So, they passed, or they did a deem it pass thing to get it moving on the, that there would be a budget resolution, but the final passage of that has not occurred. So, they're both still in a box, and the intransigence is on their own side. So it has to be solved by, browbeating, trucking, negotiating with these Democrats.
Do you think that Pelosi, I mean, the Democrats in Congress, do you think they miscalculated, what they could do here? I mean, by throwing up a bill that was so huge that they overshot this thing, that had they come in with something at $1 million or $1.5 million, they might have had that passed already. It wouldn't have stopped them from coming back with yet another bill or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think they did overdo it. I think they, and they wanted to do this quickly, right? You remember that there was a push to do this. It was like, oh, the economy's flailing and we need this injection of government cash. And now that theory has kind of been, knocked out the window. And, people are not buying that a big bunch of government spending on stuff that won't really do anybody any good. And I'm not talking about the straight infrastructure, right? We need an infrastructure bill. I've said that for 5 years, right? But this ain't it. This is larded up with special interest stuff. So go back and make an actual infrastructure bill. You probably pass it through both houses pretty quickly, and probably with a lot of Republican support. It would be a big victory for him, for Biden, but it would be a loss for the AOCs of the world, right? And I don't know if they will take that. And I don't know, it's kind of hard to measure right now, what their level of support is in the party.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely been sniping from the left, when uncertainties with regard to all this. But yeah, I mean, Pelosi, I mean, I thought she was always pretty good about counting votes and getting things through. But, I mean, I just see this as, the kind of shot they're on here, and it's just kind of blowing up in their face, and they really haven't made any progress on this. And I don't, for $3.5 trillion, I just don't see that there's any real hope for that going along. And they just kind of blew that. All right, I want to move on to this other thing on abortion here, because this has become kind of a hot button issue, at least with the liberals. So Texas has a kind of, I guess we won't call it a fetal heartbeat bill. Anyway, it bans abortions in virtually every single circumstance. I mean, it's pretty hard to get an abortion now in Texas. Supreme Court let it stand. They didn't, and I guess it was an unsigned majority opinion. Liberals have gone crazy. Constitutionality of that is called into question with Roe v. Wade, still out there, and all of this, and just Merrick Garland has gotten into this, and a lot of other things. It's even gone into where they said it have a big effect in the McAuliffe-Youngkin race. I don't know if that's actually any truth to that at all, because Terry McAuliffe hasn't been running on anything but just desperation point in time. I don't know if campaigning on this is going to help him. Who's to me, he's just a foundering candidate. He doesn't have any clue what's going on there. But one of the is this igniting the abortion debate nationwide? Is this going to be some kind of a negative for the Republicans? Can the Democrats somehow take political advantage of this?
Well, first of
in
all,
20.
to be clear, what has happened in Texas is a law was passed that said that private individuals can, sue if an abortion is held that's against the rules, right? That's, before, I guess, once fetal heartbeat is detected, which is what, 6 weeks or something, right? It's pretty early in the
Right.
thing. So the people who sued to stop the bill named government officials as defendants, right? Because normally what happens is you don't really sue to stop the law; you sue to stop enforcement of the law. So the defendants were not charged with enforcing the law. It's a civil matter brought by private citizens. So although the abortion clinics in Texas all said, we will be complying with the 6 week, the fetal heartbeat rule because, we don't want to get in trouble for this, right? So it does have the effect of, shutting them down beyond 6 weeks. But the reason the court declined to enjoin it is because they sued the wrong people, right? They named as defendants people who they thought would be enforcing the law, who don't in fact enforce the law. So the court just said, you didn't name the right defendants here. They're right, and you don't really give us a reason to enjoin the law while we wait on you to fix your bad lawyering, basically, right? Which we've had our own problems with bad lawyering. Ask Trump, right? He had some bad lawyers. So it's one with which we're familiar. So, eventually this case will make it back to the Supreme Court and or the Mississippi case, which is probably more indicative of what we have to look for jurisprudence wise from this Supreme Court, which says, I think it's 15 weeks, which is, an earlier ban than had been, permitted earlier. So it's not over yet. Now, as for the politics of it, at some point, the Democrats will say, hey, this will come back around and we'll get another shot at it. But right now their, attempt is to beat people down with it. I don't know. I think there'll be some short-term movement, right, on it. But I think that people look at the overall, stack of issues, that this is not going to be that high in determining how they vote. And, it'll strengthen some people. It'll make some people more likely to vote Republican. So, I don't know. It's kind of a wild card politically. And it's another one of those things like the Democrats don't think we can make Afghanistan last as a political issue all the way to 2022. I'm not sure they can make this last as a political issue, 22, all the way to 22. On the other topic that you brought up, though, these things do seem to be moving some votes toward Glenn Youngkin in Virginia and away from McAuliffe. And I think what is happening is McAuliffe's strategy was to say, this is guy's a Trumper. If you don't want Trump policies in Virginia, don't elect him, right? If you fear Trump, this is Trump sneaking into your house, so that held some sway. And I think what is going on is as longer these mask mandates and these vax mandates and so forth go on and people build up frustration against this stuff, the worse it is. Trump doesn't seem like such a bad option to people, that are strangled by these other things. And they're about ready to say, yeah, Trump likes him. So what? Terry, you're on the wrong side of history on a bunch of this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, as I have said, time and time again, the emails from the McAuliffe campaign, they're not about issues. They're about trying to tie Youngkin to Trump and about the desperation about the polls are even. We're in our fundraising, whatever. We need your $5, $10 now. I am just stunned at the tenor and tone of the McAuliffe emails at this point. I'm not seeing anything there that is being said from a position of strength that would encourage someone to vote for him. This is just, I need your money. I need your support. Youngkin is, he's too close for comfort.
I think that dart is losing its poison.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's exactly right. That's a strategy that I just don't think is really going to work for him in the long run. And we've got just under 2 months now to go here for this. So
and I think the more things go bad for Biden, the more you're like, okay, Trump is not the worst option on earth, right? Because Biden has not been, it's hard for them to argue that Biden has been any better than Trump, right? They may say he's not Trump, and we don't have this, mean tweets and this acidic environment, political environment, right? But this guy is not helping us any more than Trump did.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you find some never Trumpers or anti-Trumpers out there that are saying like, okay, Biden is actually making Trump look competent to us. I mean, that's a bitter pill to swallow for them. But I think there's some truth in that.
Pushing that up the hill, right? The mandates, the economy, price of gas, right? The unemployment, that are making it where like Trump hate is not really worth it anymore.
Right. All right. We're at 2 minutes.
We're at 2 minutes. Let me see what's on here. Because there was one I wanted to. As for California, I think it was a nice try. It looks like it's going to be a little short. I guess that's before we come back. That's next Tuesday, right? The California recall election.
Yeah, the 14th.
And I believe that the no to recall has pulled ahead by 10 points or so. It's going to be hard to make it up. It is California after all. They did a good job of saying it's Elder versus Newsom, right? Which is an election that Elder can't win. As long as it's up or down on Newsom, the polling is more favorable.
So at least, for on Newsom, he has his Latino support has softened a lot. But I still think I still find it hard to believe that Newsom won't survive this thing.
Yeah.
This is not Gray Davis all over again.
Right.
But and there's an election a year. So I mean, even the effect of this was probably going to be very minimal. I think
I'm no Newsom fan, but this is not a way to run a state, right? Where you elect these guys.
No, I mean,
go back a year or two later and not like them and get a redo. I mean, that's not. If he's doing something corrupt, right, then you can say, okay, this is over policy differences. If I was out there, I'd probably vote yes on the recall just because he's been really bad on the policy, and I'd like to see the other policies prevail. But I'm not sure that this is a big plus for democracy that you can just jerk these guys out of office.
Right. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, because there's an election, he's up for re-election next year anyway. The effect was going to be minimal. I think the Republicans are going to be far better off planning and trying to find strong candidates for next year than to worry about this thing, which is just it's not going to have any real material effect, and everything and just kind of disrupts the whole process. It doesn't help governance in the state, which is issues. This is, I mean, there was a report, the Newsom and all his PACs and whatever, they spent $36 million last month. I mean, what a waste of money. I mean, this is, that's another thing. I mean, I think I think we can say that we probably would prefer a little more accountability. These elections have gotten to be ridiculously expensive. You're talking, who can compete when somebody's got $36 million to spend? So this is pretty tough all the way around. I just want to say, my last comment here would just be on this report that Trump is going to do this boxing commentary. That ought to be something else. I'm almost speechless about that. That's just kind of interesting to see all of that. But my final question to you is, Coach O, what's going on?
Well, I mean, it was our first game and their second game. He's trying to do something that that college coaches, you've never really seen one do. he's more a CEO. He's like sort of the face of the organization. He's the, you know, the cleanup hitter recruiter, you know, for all positions, represents the program to the state and the press and so forth. But the coaching, the X's and O's and the player development and so forth is largely handled by others, right? To an extent that like Nick Saban is not giving up that much control at Alabama, right? And you know, like he said, the coordinators he had last year, he didn't even interview them for their jobs, right? These, I guess, he interviewed and he kind of tracked them down, but you know, like the offensive coordinator, we called the offensive coordinator from when we were 15-0 and said, you know, we know you won't come back. Who would you hire? Who knows what you know? And they gave us this guy's name and we hired him. Okay. So maybe he will work out perfectly. And we scored 27 points. So it wasn't like we didn't move the ball at all. But, you know, the model for how he's coaching this team is really kind of new. And I'm not sure, you know, maybe you have to do things the other way. But maybe it'll turn around. It's a good chance that, you know, it all turns around. This was one blip, right? We had a blip last year and ended up being a better team at the end of the year. The good thing about being LSU is we play in the SEC West. So if we go win all our conference games and win the SEC championship game, we'll be one of the 4 teams in the tournament, right? They're not turning down a 1-loss SEC champion. That's not going to happen. So the other thing is UCLA, you know, 4 years ago, Chip Kelly started and he recruited these guys and he's brought this group along. And it's finally, you know, a lot of 2 and 3 year starters who were his recruits. So UCLA is going to be a lot better this year too.
All right. Well, thank you for that comment. So I just wanted to get that out there. We throw a little sports and LSU into the whole mix. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed it. Please, as always, stay safe, stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anybody tell you otherwise. God bless America, and we will see you again next week. My button disappeared. There we go. This thing would end sooner, but come on. What's going on here?